of the portraits, which an art critic would say slyly wink at the more than 100 years of oppression of women, both as clients and practitioners. At the top up there, looking slightly severe, we've got Ada Norton. In 1916, she was one of the first women to successfully claim against her abusive husband's estate under the TFM legislation. And then, sort of, it's a little bit hard, it's down lower, but you can see her later, is Mum Shirl, the Redfern saint, who spent so many years supporting Aboriginal women in their sometimes unattractive encounters with our criminal justice system as it then stood. And then, of course, the large impromptu portrait at the top there is Sybil Morrison, striding purposefully with two male colleagues towards the court. She was our first woman barrister. Sybil Morrison wasn't alone among our forebears in considering that it had been necessary to maintain the myth of supportive male colleagues. We're able to trace that myth through the history that's already been captured by the Women Barristers Forum. Going back to 2010-2011, the forum organised to interview numbers of surviving women of the sort of pioneering years of women at the bar. And they put it together in a really good film that's on the association's website. And I'm very pleased to hear about Kerry Liotta's work, which I understand Michelle Painter is assisting with in some respect, so I'll just pay some credit to Michelle, but mainly to you, Kerry. This is going to be a complete history of our numbers. Tonight will be slightly shorter. But if I can return to the film, Sue Schreiner, who went to the bar in May 1962, and who served as an utter inspiration to me when I was a young practitioner, spoke about the sort of ethos of the bar in her day. And in her kind of no-nonsense way, she said, there were some lovely men, and then there were some men who weren't lovely. She acknowledged that there had been difficulty for her getting work, but fair as always, she said, but then again, there were fellas who had difficulty getting work. It was just that for us, there was what she so neutrally described as the extra problem. Sue wanted to envisage a level playing field in which we were all just barristers. And so for that reason, she refused to join the Women Lawyers Association. And had there been a Women Barristers Forum, I have no doubt she'd have had no truck with that. Helen Gerondis had a slightly less rosy impression of the support for women at the bar. She described attending the 1972 Bench and Bar dinner. She said this, I wasn't uncomfortable, but I wasn't made to feel welcome. Priscilla Fleming, the first female silk in New South Wales, and what an impressive silk Priscilla was. She had a similar recollection to Helen's. In particular, Priscilla talked about those days when lunch at the bar common room, required by tradition, you took up the empty seat at the table rather than going to your own table or just staying with your friends. Priscilla very frankly described the atmosphere directed to her as at times hostile. I got a whiff of that hostility when I was taken by Janet Coombs to lunch in the bar common room when I first came to the bar. As we approached the two empty seats at a table of men who looked as though they were enjoying themselves, I sensed the intake of breath, and you could just see them thinking, oh Christ, we've got Janet and the latest of her brood. I have on other occasions described the conversation that I had with Janet in her chambers immediately after that lunch. But you know, since I am now what I think is properly described as a settled septuagenarian, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't retell it. Janet said to me, I came to the bar in 1959 and I've been very important for women at the bar. And I naturally said, oh yes, Janet, tugged my forelock. And she cut me off, saying, no, I mean it. Elizabeth Evatt and Mary Gaudron were exceptional women. They're no example. I'm an ordinary woman. Most men at the bar are ordinary men and they survive. And I too have survived. That's what makes me a role model for women. Any of you who knew Janet would know that she was very far from being ordinary. But the perceptiveness of that observation struck me. I accept that things have changed enormously, and indeed, I rather suspect, though I'm not in a position to know, that things have got better just in the last 10 years since the Law Council published its report on the reasons for the high rate of attrition of women practitioners. The Law Council identified various reasons for that rate of attrition, which included the culture of the bar, which was male-dominated, unconscious bias, sexual harassment and discrimination, and inflexible working conditions. I suspect that 10 years later the bar can be said to be truly a little less male-dominated. A generation, my generation, mainly I speak of the men, with their biases, unconscious and otherwise, have largely moved on. I think the bar has really made an attempt in the last decade to tackle sexual harassment and discrimination. And I think we can thank COVID for more flexible working hours. Nonetheless, and here's where I depart from my heroine, Sue Schreiner, the idea that we no longer need organisations like Women Lawyers, of which I'm very proud to be the patron, and the Women Barristers Forum, just strikes me as crazy optimistic. Yeah. I think you only need to look at the minute, as I find myself increasingly preoccupied by doing, at the American presidential election. No rational person could understand why Vice President Harris is locked in a toss-up with an erratic, ageing criminal buffoon.